All right, class, hello. Let's go ahead and walk through the deliverables for this week. The first one I want to look at is this benchmark situation analysis. So this week you'll have two deliverables. There'll be the executive summary and the situation analysis. I would recommend do the situation analysis first and do your executive summary last. And that's because when you're writing a business plan, you always work on your executive summary last, even though in the finished product, the executive summary is the first section that a reader will come to. But because it summarizes everything else in your business plan, it is always written last. All right, so the purpose of this assignment, we'll just read through this. The purpose of this assignment is to create a presentation that synthesizes and analyzes research conducted on the team select company to determine optimal strategic alternatives. So you need to create a 10 to 12 slide PowerPoint presentation that highlights the research and analysis you've conducted throughout this course. And that includes both you individually and with your group CLC assignments. So how you selected your company's external and internal environments, influence or affected strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Speaker notes should be included for each slide. So let me show you in case you're not aware. I will bring up the PowerPoint here and then I'll share that screen with you. Okay, let's go ahead and share, and then we'll walk through the rubric. All right, so here's a typical PowerPoint presentation. I just picked the first theme that popped up. Let me go ahead and close this. So if I were gonna go, so you can do a blank presentation or you can pick the theme, you can search themes for one you like. And then we'll create this one. Okay, how do you get to the speaker's notes? That's really simple. So down here, if you hover on the bottom here, you can drag that up and all your speaker notes will go in there. So you need to do the PowerPoint presentation, make it simple, try to stick to between 3 to 5 bullet points. If you use bullet points, you can use graphs, pictures, whatever it takes for you to demonstrate your work and your point, but make sure you have the speaker's notes in there. Now let's go back to Cloud here. All right, and let's pull up the rubric because this is what you will be graded on. Here we go. All right, so you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 basic content areas. The first one is strategic profile and case analysis. So if we go over here, we'll concentrate on the excellent column. So number 1, strategic profile and case analysis. We're looking at this section right here. Strategic profile and case analysis demonstrate thorough critical research directly related to the corporation. So this is both in your notes and in the PowerPoint presentation itself. Both need to show thorough analysis. It needs to show that you've done critical thinking about the profile, the case analysis. Then we get to the situation analysis. Situational analysis utilizes the environmental, industry, competitor, and internal analyses to determine external environmental opportunities and threats, in addition to the strengths and weaknesses of the corporation. So it's essentially your SWOT analysis, but you need to help me understand how you came to identify your particular strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. So make sure that's clear in your PowerPoint and in your study notes. All right. There it goes. All right. And each one of these is worth 12% of the grade on this paper. So SWOT analysis. Then for your SWOT analysis, I want your SWOT analysis to thoroughly address the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats of the corporation. You need to tell me how the corporation might maximize its strength and capitalize on the advantageous opportunities. At the same time, you need to demonstrate to me how the company can minimize its weaknesses and avoid the opportunities or the external threats, the environmental threats. So what I need you to do here is really show me that you understand the SWOT analysis, that you give me reasons why you came to the SWOT analysis, that you thoroughly look at it, and tell me how, not just what they are, but how can the organization take advantage of its strengths and opportunities? How can it minimize the threats and weaknesses? All right, then we go down here. Strategy formulation. That includes your strategic alternatives, your alternative evaluation, your alternative choice. So strategy formulation demonstrates how the proposed alternatives draw on the SWOT analysis to make use of environmental opportunities while avoiding threats. And the evaluation of alternatives and defensive choice are detailed well and supported by research. So you need not only have to tell me again what your strategy is, what your strategic alternatives are, but you need to prove to me why you chose them. You need to back it up with references. You need to back it up with data. So you will need references in your PowerPoint, okay? So even though you've given me your references before in previous papers, you still have to cite them in this work. Then the strategic alternative implementation. It needs to demonstrate critical evaluation of possible implementation issues. So what issues are there that could come up with your strategic alternative, with implementing your strategic alternative? And you need to show that implementation actions are thoroughly and explicitly explained. So don't just label them and tell me how they are, but you need to demonstrate for me in this PowerPoint, both in the PowerPoint deck itself and in your notes, thoroughly tell me how you would execute this strategy. That's what I'll be looking for there. Okay, so those are your main areas that you need to focus on. I'm not giving you a limit on the length of the PowerPoint. I'm not telling you how many slides it needs to be. We'll look a minute and see if the directions give you a number. But keep in mind also that there are other areas that you're going to be graded on. The presentation of the content, it needs to be written clearly. It needs to be written concisely, actually, right there. Ideas universally progress and relate to each other. So your ideas in this need to relate to each other. They need to logically progress. So you lay a foundation, you build upon it, you go to your next point, you build upon it, go to your next point. That's how you need to approach this. Your project needs to include motivating questions. And your project needs to give me a clear sense of the main idea that you're presenting here. Layout needs to be visually pleasing and contributes to the overall message with appropriate use of headings, subheadings, white space. Text is appropriate in length. So if you give me too much content on a single slide, I'm not going to like that, because that's not how a good PowerPoint presentation is done. It needs to be lots of white space, so lots of blank space, like, or blue space in the example I showed you. 3 to 5 points per PowerPoint is plenty. You can add the details in your notes below the PowerPoint slide, but keep your points on the slide just to the main points you're trying to make, and then elaborate on it below. So that if I took your PowerPoint deck, I could take what you created, and just from reading through the notes, I could present this for you and be able to answer any questions people might have and lay out the content in a great way. Okay, then here we got the writer uses a variety of sentence constructions, figures of speech, and word choice in distinctive and creative ways that are appropriate to purpose, discipline, and scope. So be creative. Remember, when you're making presentations like this, it's not generally going to be just to one person. Pretend you have an audience of maybe 30 people, and each one views the information in a little different way. So you've got to find ways to shake up your sentence construction so that you can reach as many people as possible. Then, of course, we have the mechanics of writing, as always, and documentation of sources. So I want to emphasize this here. Right then. Sources are completely and correctly documented as appropriate for the assignments, and style and format is free of error. So document in your slides or in your notes as appropriate, the same way you would in the body of your paper, and then have a reference slide at the end. Use multiple reference slides if you need to, but make sure the information is in there. Okay. Let's get rid of that circle. Okay, all right, so you need to create a 10 to 12 slide PowerPoint, 10 to 12 slides. It needs to be at least 10. Try to keep it under 12. So 10, 11, 12 slides. That's what I'm asking for you. Read through this section here so you see what needs to be done. But follow the rubric. Follow the rubric, because when I pull it up to grade your papers, let me just show you. When I pull it up here, your paper will show up. Your paper will show up in this section right here. And then this is the rubric. And you can see it follows each and every one of the things we read through. This is how you're going to get graded. I just click one of these wherever your work falls, and it starts adding up your score. All right. Of course, if your assignment is late, then I start deducting that 10% a day. All right. So that is your situational analysis. If you have any questions on it as you're working through it, please reach out to me. Now, the other deliverable is your executive summary. So you need to summarize your two strategic alternatives for your selected corporation based on individual research and the group projects. Assume that you work as an analyst team at the company that you've been studying throughout this course, and you're issuing a high-level communication to the company CEO that summarizes your analysis. So this is because CEOs want things as concise and short as possible. This is your attempt at 750 to 1,000 words to summarize all your work, okay? You've got 5 prompts here. And we are going to go to the rubric. Here we go. Okay, now each item here is worth 15 points. First one is called synthesis of key analytical findings. So the synthesis and presentation of key analytical findings demonstrates thorough critical research directly related to the corporation. So the first thing is that as I read through your paper, I need to be able to see that your research is critical, you've used critical thinking, you've really thought through everything, and it relates directly to the organization that you selected. Next, strategic alternatives proposal. Proposal and assessment of 2 strategic alternatives demonstrate thorough critical research directly related to the corporation. Again, let me emphasize, you need 2 strategic alternatives. If you only give me one, you're not going to get very many points for this section. You can read through the different areas and you can see how it's going to grade you down. Give me 2 strategic alternatives. Explain them. Don't just label them, but also explain them. Competitive advantage. Steps to create a competitive advantage for the proposed alternative demonstrate thoughtful consideration of the organizational mission, vision, values. State the mission, vision, and values of the organization in your paper. Then show me, specifically tell me what the steps are to create competitive advantage, and show me that they relate to the mission and vision and values. Do that, you'll get full points for this section. Next, we've got the funding source, which relates back to your financial analysis. Proposed funding source and defense of the selection demonstrate perceptive insights into the inner workings of the corporation. So how does the organization typically raise their funds? So it's not as much of, okay, there's this option out here the company's never tried. That may be an option, and if you can support that with real data, why it would be a better option for the organization, not just your opinion, but real data, right? You can present that. But I also want you to look at how does this organization typically raise funding for its initiatives, for its financial needs. and show me how your proposed funding relate to the inner workings of the corporation. You need to be able to defend it. You need to be able to describe it. You need to be able to tell me how it relates to the organization and how it's a good fit for the organization. If it's something that the organization has never, ever tried before, that would be a much tougher sell to your CEO. So make sure that it relates rather strongly and give me the support through your references, through your research of how it relates. Then we've got the leadership development plan. Leadership development plan is specifically tailored to the corporation, researched, and provides detailed steps for how the initiative will promote a shared cultural vision. You need to meet this rubric. This is going to be very important. You have to have a leadership development plan that is tailored to the corporation. You need to give me detailed steps of how the leadership development plan, the plan for developing leaders, will promote the shared cultural vision. So you have to know what the cultural vision of the organization is. You're not going to create a whole new vision in your analysis for a company that you work for. If the current vision is working and is being embraced by the entire organization, because changing a cultural vision is a huge undertaking that we haven't even approached in this course. So make sure you conform to this rubric. All right, and then we have the normal things. 5%, we'll go to the thesis is comprehensive and contains the essence of the paper. So I need a thesis statement in the beginning of your paper, what you're going to accomplish, the purpose of this paper, and then develop your thesis. Argument, logic, and construction needs to be clear, convincing arguments. Give me persuasive claims in a clear, in a distinctive manner, supported by sources that are authoritative, okay? So sources that are authoritative, can be verified, are more than just opinions, are backed by real data. Got your mechanics, so make sure you're checking your grammar, spelling, all that. Make sure you're using APA format in your paper. And then finally, again, as always, cite all your sources. Cite them appropriately in the body. Give me a reference page at the end. Use as many as you need to support all your work in this assignment. All right. Now you're given 750 to 1,000 words to do this. I'll read through these, but follow the rubric more than this, because this gives a good general description. It should align to the rubric fairly well, but make sure you're looking at your rubric. You can see at the bottom, this benchmark assignment assesses the following competencies: your business analytics, business management, finance, or those are the degrees. So please follow the rubric in this. Do this to the best of your ability, support it with evidence, and you'll be fine. All right, as always, if you have any questions, let me know. Those are the deliverables for this week. Please show up on the Zoom meeting so that I can give you full credit for participation. And we will see you in class. Thank you.